Mitsubishi's automotive origins date back to 1917, when the Mitsubishi Shipbuilding Company, Limited, introduced the Mitsubishi Model A, Japan's first series production automobile. An entirely hand-built 7-seater sedan based on the Fiat Tipo 3, it proved expensive compared to its American and European mass-produced rivals, and was discontinued in 1921 after only 22 had been built. In 1934, Mitsubishi Shipbuilding was merged with the Mitsubishi Aircraft Company, a company established in 1920 to manufacture aircraft engines and other parts. The unified company was known as Mitsubishi Heavy Industries, MHI, and was the largest private company in Japan. MHI concentrated on manufacturing aircraft, ships, railroad cars and machinery, but in 1937 developed the PX-33, a prototype sedan for military use. It was the first Japanese-built passenger car with full-time four-wheel drive, a technology the company would return to almost 50 years later in its quest for motorsport and sales success. Immediately following the end of the Second World War, the company returned to manufacturing vehicles. Fuso bus production resumed, while a small three-wheeled cargo vehicle called the Mizushima and a scooter called the Silver Pigeon were also developed. However, the Zaibatsu, Japan's family-controlled industrial conglomerates, were ordered to be dismantled by the Allied powers in 1950, and Mitsubishi Heavy Industries was split into three regional companies, each with an involvement in motor vehicle development: West Japan Heavy Industries, Central Japan Heavy Industries, and East Japan Heavy Industries. East Japan Heavy Industries began importing the Henry J, an inexpensive American sedan built by Kaiser Motors, in knockdown kit, CKD, form in 1951, and continued to bring them to Japan for the remainder of the car's 3-year production run. The same year, Central Japan Heavy Industries concluded a similar contract with Willis, now owned by Kaiser, for CKD-assembled Jeep CJ3BS. This deal proved more durable, with licensed Mitsubishi Jeeps in production until 1998, 30 years after Willis had replaced the model. By the beginning of the 1960s, Japan's economy was gearing up, wages were rising and the idea of family motoring was taking off. Central Japan Heavy Industries, now known as Shin Mitsubishi Heavy Industries, had already re-established an automotive department in its headquarters in 1953. Now, it was ready to introduce the Mitsubishi 500, a mass-market sedan, to meet the new demand from consumers. It followed this in 1962 with the Minica K car and the Colt 1000, the first of its Colt line of family cars, in 1963. In 1964, Mitsubishi introduced its largest passenger sedan, the Mitsubishi Debonair, as a luxury car primarily for the Japanese market, and was used by senior Mitsubishi executives as a company car. West Japan Heavy Industries, now renamed Mitsubishi Shipbuilding and Engineering, and East Japan Heavy Industries, now Mitsubishi Neon Heavy Industries, had also expanded their automotive departments in the 1950s, and the three were reintegrated as Mitsubishi Heavy Industries in 1964. Within 3 years, its output was over 75,000 vehicles annually. Following the successful introduction of the first Galant in 1969 and similar growth with its commercial vehicle division, the company decided to create a single operation to focus on the automotive industry. Mitsubishi Motors Corporation, MMC, was formed on April 22, 1970, as a wholly owned subsidiary of MHI under the leadership of Tomio Kubo, a successful engineer from the aircraft division. Citation needed. The logo of 3 red diamonds, shared with over 40 other companies within the Keiretsu, antedates Mitsubishi Motors itself by almost a century. It was chosen by Iwasaki Yataro, the founder of Mitsubishi, as it was suggestive of the emblem of the Tosa clan who first employed him, and because his own family crest was 3 rhombi stacked atop each other. The name Mitsubishi consists of 2 parts, Mitsu meaning 3 and Hishi, which becomes Bishi under Rendaku, meaning water caltrop, also called water chestnut, and hence rhombus, which is reflected in the company's logo. 1970s, Chrysler Partnership. Part of Tomio Kubo's expansion strategy was to increase exports by forging alliances with well-established foreign companies. Therefore, in 1971, MHI sold U.S. automotive giant Chrysler a 15% share in the new company. Thanks to this deal, Chrysler began selling the Galant in the United States as the Dodge Colt, which was the first rebadged Mitsubishi product sold by Chrysler, pushing MMC's annual production beyond 250,000 vehicles. In 1977, the Galant was sold as the Chrysler Sigma in Australia. By 1977, a network of Colt-branded distribution and sales dealerships had been established across Europe, as Mitsubishi sought to begin selling vehicles directly. Annual production had by now grown from 500,000 vehicles in 1973 to 965,000 in 1978, when Chrysler began selling the Galant as the Dodge Challenger and the Plymouth Sapporo. However, this expansion was beginning to cause friction. Chrysler saw their overseas markets for subcompacts as being directly encroached by their Japanese partners, while MMC felt the Americans were demanding too much say in their corporate decisions. 1980s, U.S. entry. Edit. Mitsubishi Motors finally achieved annual production of 1 million cars in 1980, but by this time, its ally was not so healthy. As part of its battle to avoid bankruptcy, Chrysler was forced to sell its Australian manufacturing division to MMC that year. The new Japanese owners renamed it Mitsubishi Motors Australia Ltd., MMAL. In 1982, the Mitsubishi brand was introduced to the American market for the first time. The Tredia sedan and the Cordia and Starion coupes were initially sold through 70 dealers in 22 states, with an allocation of 30,000 vehicles among them. This quota, restricted by mutual agreement between the two countries' governments, had to be included among the 120,000 cars earmarked for Chrysler. A restricting element of Mitsubishi's deal with Chrysler was that Chrysler had the right of first refusal of any Mitsubishi automobiles in the U.S. market until 1990. Toward the end of the 1980s, as MMC initiated a major push to increase its U.S. presence, it aired its first national television advertising campaign and made plans to increase its network to 340 dealers. Despite the ongoing tensions between Chrysler and Mitsubishi, they agreed to unite in a vehicle manufacturing operation in Normal, Illinois. The 50-50 venture provided a way to circumvent the voluntary import restrictions, while providing a new line of compact and subcompact cars for Chrysler. Diamond Star Motors, DSM, from the parent company's logos, 3 diamonds, Mitsubishi, and a Pentastar, Chrysler, was incorporated in October 1985, and in April 1986, ground was broken on a 1.9 million square foot, 177,000 square meters, production facility in Normal. In 1987, the company was selling 67,000 cars a year in the U.S., but when the plant was completed in March 1988, it offered an annual capacity of 240,000 vehicles. Initially, 3 platform-sharing compact 2+2 coupes were released, the Mitsubishi Eclipse, Eagle Talon, and Plymouth Laser, with other models being introduced in subsequent years. In 1986, Mitsubishi reached an agreement with Liuzhou Automotive to assemble their minicab K-van and truck there, making Mitsubishi the third Japanese manufacturer, after Daihatsu and Suzuki, to begin assembly in China, citation needed. Before receiving government approval for this project, Mitsubishi had to express contrition over defective Mitsubishi trucks imported to China in 1984 and 1985. By 1989, Mitsubishi's worldwide production, including its overseas affiliates, had reached 1.5 million units. Mitsubishi Motors went public in 1988, ending its status as the only one of Japan's 11 auto manufacturers to be privately held. Mitsubishi Heavy Industries agreed to reduce its share to 25%, retaining its position as largest single stockholder. Chrysler, meanwhile, increased its holding to over 20%. The capital raised by this initial offering enabled Mitsubishi to pay off part of its debts, as well as to expand its investments throughout Southeast Asia, where it was by now operating in the Philippines, Malaysia, and Thailand. 1990s SUV focus. Hirokazu Nakamura became president of Mitsubishi Motors in 1989, and steered the company in some promising directions, with the advent of the Japanese asset price bubble market correction that led to the lost decade as a result of the Plaza Accord agreement signed in 1985. Sales of the company's new Pajero were bucking conventional wisdom by becoming popular even in the crowded streets of Japan. Japanese media rumored in 1992 and 1993 that Mitsubishi Motors intended a hostile acquisition of Honda. While Mitsubishi was riding high off of profitable vehicles such as the Diamante and Pajero, Honda was caught off guard with the SUV and truck boom, and was losing focus after the illness and later death of its founder. Honda CEO Nobuhiko Kawamoto took drastic steps, though, such as exiting Formula One and discontinuing unprofitable vehicles to avert a Mitsubishi takeover, which proved effective. Although sales of SUVs and light trucks were booming in the U.S., Japan's car manufacturers dismissed the idea that such a trend could occur in their own country. Nakamura, however, increased the budget for SUV product development, and his gamble paid off. Mitsubishi's wide line of four-wheel drive vehicles, from the Mitsubishi Pajero Mini K car to the Delica Space Gear passenger van, rode the wave of SUV buying in Japan in the early to mid-1990s, and Mitsubishi saw its overall domestic share rise to 11.6% in 1995. In 1991, Chrysler sold its equity stake in Diamond Star Motors to its partner Mitsubishi Motors, and from then on the two companies continued to share components and manufacturing on a contractual basis only. Chrysler decreased its interest in Mitsubishi Motors to less than 3% in 1992, and announced its decision to divest itself of all its remaining shares on the open market in 1993. The two companies then terminated their close alliance, with Mitsubishi Motors no longer supplying parts for engines and transmissions for Chrysler. After this period, the company sought alliances with many other automotive manufacturers in different areas of the world, as described under other alliances below, with its most economically significant alliance being with Nissan to develop and manufacture K cars. 2000s. Mitsubishi Heavy Industries, MHI, participated in a 540 billion yen emergency rescue of Mitsubishi Motors in January 2005, in partnership with Mitsubishi Corporation and Mitsubishi Tokyo Financial Group, 1819. As part of the rescue, MHI acquired 50 billion yen of Mitsubishi Motors stock, increasing its ownership stake to 15% and making the automaker an affiliate again. The emergency rescue was carried out 4 years after a product recall scandal in Japan that was triggered by accusations of Mitsubishi Motors trying to systematically hide manufacturing defects to avoid recalls, and marketing problems in the US. After a starvation of new investment caused by lack of cash flow, the company introduced the award-winning Mitsubishi IK car in 2006, its first new model in 29 months, while a revised Outlander has been introduced worldwide to compete in the popular XUV market niche. 20. The next generation of its Lancer and Lancer Revolution was launched in 2007 and 2008. 21. Slow-selling vehicles were eliminated from the U.S. market, purchase projections for the Global Engine Manufacturing Alliance have been scaled back, and 10,000 jobs were shed to cut costs, with 3,400 workers at its Australian plant and other loss-making operations still under threat. Meanwhile, in an effort to increase production at its U.S. facility, new export markets for the Eclipse and Galant were being explored in Ukraine, the Middle East, and Russia, where the company's best-selling dealership is located. Mitsubishi Motors has also been active in OEM production of cars for Nissan and announced a similar partnership with Group PSA in July 2005 to manufacture an SUV on their behalf. 25. Mitsubishi Motors reported its first profitable quarter in 4 years in the third quarter of 2006, and returned to profitability by the end of the 2006 financial year, and sustained profitability in global sales of 1,524,000 through 2007 and later. In January 2011, the company announced its next midterm business plan to introduce 8 hybrid and battery-powered models by 2015. It aimed to sell its first 2 plug-in hybrids by fiscal 2012. In March 2015, Mitsubishi Motors started the construction of a new manufacturing plant in Indonesia under a joint venture with Mitsubishi Corporation, 40%, and a local company Krama Yuta Group, 9%, with the maximum production capacity of 160,000 vehicles per year. In July 2015, the Mitsubishi Motors announced that it plans to end production at the Diamond Star Motors plant in Normal, Illinois, U.S., as the plant has been operating well below capacity for several years. Operations at the facility ended in May 2016. 31. The plant was sold to Maynards Industries, which sold the site to American electric vehicle startup Rivian in 2017. 2016 to present, Renault and Nissan Mitsubishi Alliance membership. Edit. In May 2016, in the wake of the fuel efficiency scandal uncovered by Nissan, discussed in Fuel Economy Scandal, Nissan began the acquisition of a 34% stake in Mitsubishi Motors, with the aim of making Nissan the largest and controlling shareholder of Mitsubishi and turning Mitsubishi Motors into a member of the Renault-Nissan Alliance, the Alliance. Nissan has said that they plan to share some car platforms and jointly develop future vehicles with Mitsubishi Motors. Nissan's acquisition of the 34% controlling interest in Mitsubishi Motors was completed in October 2016, when Carlos Ghosn, the chairman of Nissan, Renault, and the Alliance, also became chairman of Mitsubishi Motors. Ghosn remained chairman of Mitsubishi until his dismissal following his arrest by the Japanese government in November 2018, when Mitsubishi Motors CEO Osamu Masuko assumed the chairmanship. By 2023, Renault Group began supplying Mitsubishi in continental Europe, with the Renault Clio and Renault Captur rebadge as the Colt and ASX. The firm has no plans to sell any of the models in Britain or Ireland, as the Colt car company's Mitsubishi aftersales business was bought as a going concern by International Motors, a firm previously known for launching Hyundai onto the UK market in 1981. Mitsubishi Motors plans to stop developing car platforms for the Japanese market and instead use vehicle bases made by Ally Nissan Motor beginning around 2026.